Thank you for joining this episode of Healing Race. In this episode, I share with Andre my epiphany about one of the ways that his mistrust of white people has played into our own relationship and our working together on this Healing Race project. And I connect that epiphany with my grandfather's story and the way he experienced mistrust as a Jewish Holocaust survivor.
In his grandfather's story, I see a parallel to the caution that I bring to white relationships. And Todd and I had a particularly touching moment as we discussed the way his grandfather dealt with his mistrust at the end of his life. So let's get to that conversation. Enjoy.
You know, one way that it really hit me, Andre, again, recently, where I put two and two together, and it's both a feeling of, it's both a mind thing and a heart thing, was the last part of our last conversation. You know, this thing around, is there, and we have differences of thought on this, is there this universal psychological, dynamic within a white person of the psychology of ownership or control over the Black human being? And I don't, like I said, I don't deny that it exists. I don't happen to know the prevalence of it or the intensity of it within a given individual. But I do believe that it's, at the very least, in my perspective, is minimal in some, if at least minimal, if not just not part of their makeup.
You know what, Tom?
But can I just tie this to a specific experience? Mm-hmm. What the impact was for me, kind of reflecting on it, was you sent me an email or a text as we were starting this project and we were thinking about doing this together. And you wanted, I can't remember exactly the question, but you wanted to essentially have like the T's crossed, the I's dotted with regard to just a sense of ownership over the project, right? Mm-hmm. A sense of co-ownership, a sense of, and, at the time I was like, I always thought it was reasonable. I still do think it was reasonable. I think I got an extra perspective, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I think I got an extra perspective of where that came from. Because it also,
you're right about it.
Yeah, it also was like a sense of urgency and a haste, like we're about to start it, like we got to get this figured out before, and this sense of, I'm a white person, right? And you imagine white people having a sense of control over Black people, and you not wanting to fall into that trap again, and which
is why we needed contracts. Yeah. Let me affirm, you are 100% right about what you're saying.
So let me just finish, which is like when it hit me that when I put two and two together was like that set of emails and texts or whatever, and this belief about white people, and I'm a white person, I was just like, and I don't mean this in any negative way, I think you know that, but I was just like, oh, I'm so just sad that Andre thought I would take advantage of it.
Yep, I sure did. I was like, what if this becomes really big and he takes all the money? We need contracts.
No, it does never, and that's what I'm trying to say. I understand. Oh my God. I understand the caution. Like, I understand where that comes from. But I also there's this part of me just being your friend. And I know you at the end, you're like, you're not going to change my mind. And I don't want to. But there is this part of me that wants to plead with you that Andre, I would never do that. I would never think in that way. Like, I completely value you in this project to the extent where when you would keep saying your project, I would say, you mean our project?
And I noticed you would do that. I noticed you would, like,
we're partners here.
I noticed you would do that. Oh my God, I love our friendship.
I want you to own it. I want you to own it. Like, so
you are first of all, you are 100% right. That was the motivation behind the text message. Yes. And yes, you are 100% right. Yeah. Yep. That was the exact motivation behind the text message.
Yeah. Yep. Just to explain where I sat with it was, I have to be at a place where I can not just understand, but accept that how Andre feels and thinks about this has a justification in a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I don't think the present reality of us two, our relationship is but that it's a reality in your life, right? That you've experienced. And I need to be okay with him being in that place and indefinitely, to be honest, and still love him and, and care about him and, be authentic in myself to say, it's just not my reality. I am trying to be as truthful as I can possibly know to be. We're not all knowing, including about ourselves. And, the parallel experience that I think opened me up to being able to do that was my grandfather. I had to live in this world with him being one of my best friends, in the world with him, including my grandmother. But I had a lot of these, these kinds of conversations because I think felt like my grandmother was more open in this way. He was uncomfortable about people who were non-Jewish being in his home. And he went through the Holocaust. Like he escaped it early on, but then got thrown in he went to the Siberian mountains. So he escaped into Russia. He got thrown right into jail and went to the Siberian mountains and was tortured there. So he has this, and his family, for the most part, was wiped out. So that's his real life experience. Now, I'm going to sit there and imagine being in that experience and not have a true understanding of an acceptance of his discomfort with having someone who's not Jewish in his home. How could I do that? Even if I wanted with all of my heart for him to feel open, because I knew the people who are non-Jewish in my life, I knew that they would be people he would love and trust and enjoy their company. And, but I had to live in that kind of dual world of just completely understanding where he's coming from and accepting it, So and what I will say is he just had, like, in the latter days of his life, a complete transformation.
Did he?
I mean, Andre, it was one of the most momentous experiences. So, I can't say that it was all this one moment because it was over time. I would always ask, can I bring this friend over? Is it okay? And over time, as we dialogued about all sorts of things about life, the two of us, he's, started to get comfortable, and I'd bring someone over and he'd meet them and he'd realize, oh, we can have fun or joke around or have a conversation. There were those little moments. But then he had heart condition. He had, he was on and off, he'd have some sort of procedure. He'd have a heart attack, and then, he'd be in hospital, he'd be okay. And then, it'd come back. And so the last time he went through that experience, and he was in the hospital for a while, he came home and I went to go visit him, and I could just tell this was the last time this was going to happen.
Yeah.
He was like so tired. And the thing is that, we hold our emotions in our body. Like the emotions that we have, they're hard to deal with. And so we just tighten them up. We lock them in a prison in our body, and that physical tightening helps to make sure that it doesn't come out, but inevitably it does. And, he was so physically weak, Andre, that no emotion was going to hide. There was just, he didn't have the physical capacity to keep it down. And I can't remember what question I asked him, but, he was just, again, exhausted in bed from being, having to go through dialysis and think for his kidneys, and which is, very exhausting and painful, I think. So he was exhausted. He was in his bed, and I could tell this was it. He just started crying. I'd seen him cry before. I think maybe one of the only ones to see him cry just because of the kinds of conversations we had. But I mean, like I've never seen, like I've seen him even cry pretty deeply, but I mean, it was just uncontrollable. And he was talking about, I think, he was like a person of deep faith. And he was just talking about how he was going to miss this world that God created, the flowers. And he just started naming everything, and and it was just like an amazing moment. And I was just like, oh my God, like everything's going to come out. So we had dinner that night or the night after. It was our last dinner at their house. And I asked him a question. I thought, God, if this is really kind of among the last conversations that I'm going to have, I've asked my grandfather a lot of questions. Like I always try to be complete with the people in my life, in terms of nothing left unsaid, unasked. And so I asked myself, I said, is there anything that I have not yet asked my grandfather that I want to ask him? And so I asked him, I said, how did you do it? Like, how did you get through that whole time? And like, what did you like? And he started telling me like how he escaped. I've heard that story like I don't even more than a dozen times. I said, no, I don't mean how you like the logistics of how you did it. I mean, every day, how did you get it together to carry on another day, to do what you needed to do to survive? And he talked about, I just used to like imagine my family, my one day family, that life that I was going to have. And then he started going on this, like just this rant. And he started talking about a little bit about his escape story, but he started doing it in a different way. So he told me, so he escaped into Russia from Poland, from the Nazi work camps. And he was like disoriented. I think I might've told you that story. I'll tell you another time if I haven't, that exact escape. It's a pretty amazing story, but he found himself to a farmhouse. He couldn't speak the language. That person took him to the city and they threw him in jail and I think charged him with like treason or whatever it was. And he told me about how, and this part of the story he had never told me before. He said, I was thrown in the jail and there was this woman and she was not Jewish. And she put a blanket on me. And I was cold and I was tired and I was sick and she put a blanket on me and I just slept for like longer than I've ever slept. And he was trying to say something, he was trying to say this was a non-Jewish person who showed love. And then he, went fast forwarded and he said, when I got out of the Siberian work camp, and he had told me this part of the story before, he was essentially rescued by a guy who owned a bakery, among other things. I think he was just a businessman. And I think he probably got, they made things in the Siberian camp. So he probably went to get things. And somehow over the course of this guy coming over and over, somehow he made a connection to my grandfather. And he lied and he said, I need this guy because I have a bakery. My grandfather had never been in a bakery before. He lied so that he could save him. And he said he wasn't Jewish. And he kept saying that. And then he said, so my grandmother had a stroke and she had caretakers in the home who, home health aid folks, and none of them were Jewish. And so one of them was there and she was in the room and he said, God loves everybody, and was looking right at her. And, it was, my grandfather had done his transformation. It was the end of his life, better then than never. Right. But it was the time that he had to, he had no physical barriers anymore. He didn't have the strength to have them. And there's something in the whole collection of his experiences that he started to recognize that, yes, he was persecuted for being a Jew in a heinous way. as did his larger population. And it was non-Jews inflicting this. But there was a whole set of experiences of non-Jewish people being brave, showing kindness and love, in his past, all the way back into that past, all the way into the future, that all of a sudden I feel like compelled this change of heart, literally a change of heart. You know, and I just wish that for all of us, you know. Why wait? Certainly do it better now than never, you know, but why wait till the deathbed to do that, to where my grandfather was? I was so happy it happened. I mean, you know, you can imagine having these conversations over decades with my grandfather and getting to this place of just being blown away by his transformation and like what he looked like, you know, physically, even what he looked like, saying those things and being in that place. And there are all these stumbling blocks that we have, you know, different realities, trusting each other in our realities, caring enough to not be so what, who cares? There's so many different pieces that block us from those moments, but like, that's when we're at our best, I think. I can certainly say, loving my grandfather and seeing him at many bests, that was his best. That was his absolute best. And I think even he would recognize it, given how it was intentional. Like, he was being intentional. He knew where he had come to. So, you know, all of that is to say, I mean, it's a long way to say, we just have to be understanding and kind to one another in that way. Like, I couldn't not understand even if my grandfather never got to that point, I couldn't not understand the things that shaped his experience. And that if the best was working with non-Jewish people outside of the home, but not having them in his home, but being willing to be, you know, at least a good person to other people, if that was the best, then that was his best. Even if I believed he could have a better best.
I'm crying for a few reasons. Number one, because the story is moving, and I've heard Holocaust stories before, but I don't believe in our friendship. I never really heard as much of your grandfather's story as you just shared, but also in the common humanity that while I did not have your grandfather's experiences, our thinking, his thinking and my thinking were not dissimilar.
Yeah.
When he did not trust people who weren't Jewish, and I've essentially told you I don't trust people who aren't Black. No. Like, there are definitely some parallels into your, you know, from your grandfather's framework in my framework as well.
Yeah. Which is why I made that connection to. I'm sure that experience with him has paved and shaped the way that I think about and feel about engaging with this topic, and having an understanding that we can't just push each other. We just have to be human to one another, and we can't push each other to face the ways that our past and our reality has shaped us, and the ways in which it might block love, as you've put it before. But we just have to have real relationships and real conversations, and let it go where it goes, and just have a trust that in being human to one another and giving each other a space to be ourselves and to be authentically ourselves and to go on our own journey. But like, we just have to understand and accept. And I really do, you know, I don't, you know, while I can acknowledge and kind of understand and have an epiphany around why you wanted to have the conversation about, you know, well, how is this thing owned, and what are the intellectual property rights, and all conversations we have to have. And I mean, hopefully I got across in my response to you that it's like a no-brainer to me that this is ours. Like, we're doing this together. We're in together, equal partners. Like, that's it. Like, we are, you know, brothers in this, you know, journey. But, you know, it's not just that I accept and understand. Like, I really don't like take offense to that. Like, I think some people take offense to that. They think, like, he thinks like I'm a person who takes advantage. I'm like, no, I get it. Like you have a reason for having caution. And yeah, I want to work through it. But just because I decide to say, no, Andre, I'm not that way, that all of a sudden there's supposed to be some light switch. Not at all. Not at all.
You know me well.
No, we haven't experienced that. I have to show you, that I am truly a different way. If I believe it in myself, like I have to just be that person and let you see it.
You know me well. Because my thought was, Todd, does Todd think I'm some fool just because he says, well, I'm going to believe him, boy? So, yes, that was my thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man, this feels so full circle. From that first session to, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I'm comfortable that we've had our session. It just feels so full. And thank you for the offering of your grandfather's story. Like, woo, Lord, that was powerful.
Yeah.
That was powerful.
I know it because
she put a blanket on it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh yeah. That moment. Because it's also, Andre, it's just like the little thing, right? Like the big thing. I mean, the guy who saved him, I mean, that's huge. Like, I mean, he saved his life. I don't exist without that guy, right? I don't exist without a non-Jewish guy being in the world and doing that, right? So that is like itself a powerful idea. But the thing about the blanket is like the everyday simple care, right? That we could just in everyday life treat each other better, show that we care, show that we truly see each other as just equal human beings with an equal right to dignity and love. When he was telling that story, I just like lost it. I was just like, wow, never told me this. I don't even know. Did he have it in his mind before the so many different times he's told me that story and just didn't tell me? Did he not have it and not remember it because his mind wouldn't let him go there because he had locked it up because of this caution? And it only took the ravaging of his body to open him up to remember. Like, wow. Like there was this person and she was not Jewish. Like, I will never know the answer to that question. But it's so powerful.
Another way in which your grandfather and I are similar, although mine has not been a life-saving story, there have been Jewish people. I've always gotten along really well with Jewish people. And I've spent part of my childhood around a lot of them, but who've shown me great kindnesses. I mean, great kindnesses. Yeah. Great kindnesses. Yeah. So I say that to say, I know that not all white people are bad or anything.
Thank you for watching this episode of Healing Race, and stay with us for a scene from our next video.
If you want to see more conversations like the one you just watched, please subscribe to our channel, share this video with friends and family, and like and comment on the video below.
If you'd like to be a guest on one of our episodes and have an open, real conversation about race, email us at guests@healingraceshow.com.
And if there are topics you think we should cover, we'd love to hear them. So please email your ideas to topics@healingraceshow.com.
As always, thanks for your support. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Now, here's a scene from our next Healing Race. You said there were two things that struck you emotionally. One was just the story itself, and one was the fact that you and my grandfather's your approach and my grandfather's approach were not dissimilar, right, with regard to
self-protection, emotional, physical and emotional self-protection.
Yeah. What about hearing the parallels between my grandfather and I? What about that made you emotional? Why did hearing a similar approach from him spark emotion in you.
To watch the rest of that episode, go ahead and click the video below me.
To see a different compelling Healing Race episode, you can click the video below me. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.